Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, February 2nd. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News, broadcasting from Jerusalem. The partial closure imposed on Ramallah Monday has been lifted. The Army opened up all exits and entrances to the West Bank city this morning, and normal activity at the crossings has resumed. Passage in and out was restricted yesterday, following intelligence information of planned terror attacks emanating from the area. The decision to close off the city, which is considered the West Bank's economic and political center, was made in coordination with the political echelon. It was the first time such a measure was imposed since the recent wave of terror, which began 4 months ago. Palestinians complained it was collective punishment for the act of one individual who carried out an attack on Sunday. The Palestinian terrorist, Amjad Sakouri, worked as a bodyguard for the PA Prosecutor General in Ramallah. He opened fire at a checkpoint near Beit El, injuring 3 soldiers before he was shot dead. The IDF today began mapping out his home in the West Bank village of Jama'in in preparation for demolition. Police will now be able to search any person deemed suspicious in an area of heightened security without a reasonable cause. The new directive comes into effect after a bill proposed by Internal Security Minister Gilad Erdan passed its 3rd reading in the Knesset last night. Aimed at giving police extra authority to prevent violence, it also gives them permission to search a person's belongings. The ruling is limited to areas which commanders can declare sensitive to an attack. This status can only be temporary and on grounds that special security concerns are involved. It will be used particularly during events where large crowds are present. The new legislation is a softened version of the original bill, which encountered widespread public opposition, including from the Association for Civil Rights in Israel. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert appeared before the Jerusalem Magistrates Court once again today. Olmert, who is heading to jail in less than 2 weeks' time for his role in the Holy Land affair, was convicted today of obstructing justice in 2 other corruption cases against him. This after he reached a plea bargain with the state prosecutor's office, ending the Shula Zak and tapes affair. It was the first time Olmert admitted he tried to obstruct investigations and confessed to any wrongdoing after years of maintaining his innocence. In return, he received a 50,000 shekel fine and 6 months in jail for the Talansky affair, a period which will be served concurrently with the 18-month Holy Land prison sentence. Now to the disturbing study released this week by the Haifa University regarding the possible effect of refineries and pollution levels in the northern Haifa district on the local population's health. Health Minister Yaakov Litzman and Environmental Affairs Minister Avi Gabay have both vowed to thoroughly review the findings. The two summoned the writers of the survey, which revealed that babies born in the area had a lower than average weight and head circumference. The study also found that rates of lung cancer and lymphoma in areas surrounding Haifa are up to 5 times the natural average. While officials at the Health and Environment Ministries said they appreciated the work, they also raised many questions regarding the findings, which they claim are not definite and final. Joining us now from our Haifa studio is attorney Tzipi Izer Itzik of the Center for Environmental Protection at the Netanya Academic College. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
First of all, what do you make of these very disturbing findings in Haifa, and how concerned should residents of that area be?
The residents, of course, are concerned, and it's obvious. I think the most important thing is that now we don't have yet the results, the final results of this research, but we can urge the government to take precautionary steps. We know the precautionary principle, it's very known all over the world, and when the research hasn't final conclusions, but we can see that there's a danger to public health. I think this is exactly the situation where the government should do and not wait until the research is going to be finished within a few years. It's a long research.
Haifa Mayor Yonah Lav objected to what he called the premature revelation of the study and demanded that the Environmental Protection Ministry expand the study to other municipalities, not only his city. Does this problem exist in other areas across the country?
Excuse me, I didn't hear your question. Can you repeat your question?
Certainly. The Haifa mayor, he said he called the study premature, and he said that the Environmental Protection Ministry expand the study to other municipalities, not only his city. Does this problem exist in other areas across the country?
The exposure to pollution, to air pollution, is very dangerous. And when people are exposed to dangerous materials, so we can guess that there is a potential danger. Now we're talking about an area that has many times rose this thought about very large exposure to those materials. So I think that we're focused now on Haifa Bay area. I think we should urge the government to do what the government can do in this period until the findings are getting fixed and brought by the researchers to the government. Until this period is ended, we can do few things that are economically justified, and we can protect the population around this area by precautionary steps that can be taken for this period.
What are these precautionary steps that you're suggesting?
There are a few changes. I cannot get into details in this short time, but we can do a few things about technologies, about fuels that can be changed in the process, in the industry process, so that the process would be cleaner and better to the environment and to the public health. And these are things that the government should encourage, should support. And now we know that the Minister of Environment actually put on the table now a new national plan for this area. I think that vis-a-vis these conclusions or these details that has been published, he can enlarge this plan and do more things to lower the level of pollution in this area for this period.
At the same time, we're hearing of plans to expand the number of refineries. How does this fit in with these findings?
I think these findings were coming up because the government and the agencies are actually taking into account all environmental things that should be taken into account. So I think these findings are a part of this period and should affect, of course, the conclusion that would be made in the end of this process. So absolutely it's relevant, and I think it comes because of that process. Actually, I have heard that the budget to this research came from the industry that actually filed the petition to or the request to enlarge their activity.
So how does this go hand in hand?
How it's going to be ended, I don't know, but I think those findings or those details that have been published should, of course, raise a lot of awareness to this consideration that we're not very, very highly respected in our country. I think it's about time that we think not only about economy. It's important, of course, economy and development, but now we should talk about sustainable development, about thinking how the development is affecting the population around.
One more question. What do you say to those who claim that refineries and local factories, they're a big source of livelihood for many of the area's residents? How do you answer them?
Their people also live there, so I think the concern, it's not only the concern of the municipality or the population, it's the concern also of the industry, and they should be a part of the process. And I think they, of course, they have the responsibility to take into account environmental consideration as well.
Thank you so much for being our guest this evening and for your insight. Threats of a nationwide municipal strike 1 week from today on the 9th of February. The reason for the possible work sanctions is the local authorities' refusal to pay bonuses to its employees as stipulated in a recent deal struck over public sector wages. Head of the Histadrut Labor Federation, Avi Nissenkorn, said that if a solution won't be reached, the strike will include educational authorities and construction committees. In a separate development, Nissenkorn today officially joined the Labor Zionist Union Party, headed by opposition leader Isaac Herzog. Nissenkorn will continue to serve as the head of the Histadrut. Recently published data by the Central Bureau of Statistics on labor trends in Israel indicates that more ultra-Orthodox men are entering the workforce. The report found that the number of employed Haredi has been steadily increasing since 2003 and broke the 50% mark during the second half of 2015. The CBS report also found that the percentage of Haredi women incorporated in the workforce saw a dramatic increase from 51% to 73% over the past few years. In addition, the report noted that 1 in every 10 young Haredi men and women is leaving the Orthodox community. Remains from the Columbia Space Shuttle were unveiled for the first time today in a special ceremony held in Herzliya, marking 13 years since the crash that killed 6 astronauts, including Israeli Ilan Ramon. Ramon's widow, Rona, requested from NASA that the shreds be brought to Israel in honor of the annual space conference, which was launched today. In attendance at the event, alongside Rona Ramon, were Science, Technology, and Space Minister Ophir Kunis and U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Dan Shapiro. Several NASA astronauts also arrived in the country to join the Israel Space Week programs. Olive oil is considered the bedrock of the Mediterranean diet, but its increasing popularity is also an open invitation to fraud. The Robert H. Smith Faculty of Agriculture in Rehovot recently held a course training experts to recognize the real thing. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan was there and filed this report.
To me, the first note I got in my nose, compared to the other one, which was clear grass, I thought of a green apple.
Olive oil fraud is a major international racket, and a lot of phony extra virgin olive oil is making its way to Israel. Furthermore, the Ministry of Health recently exposed 14 producers of fake olive oil. Olive oil fraud is rampant because it's so easy to fool consumers, which is where tasters come in.
Tasting is an excellent idea because we can sense, once you learn how to do the tasting, you can sense a lot of the chemicals, and from this you can tell whether it has something that shouldn't be there. Well, let's go back to gasoline. We know how to sense gasoline. Do we know to sense gasoline in olive oil? Only if we train. But if you're a trained taster and you tell me, I'm the chemist now, and you tell me this oil is suspected to contain gasoline, then you make my work really easy.
Olive oil production started in this land 6,500 years ago. About 25 local producers, marketers, and connoisseurs were spending 5 days perfecting their tasting skills.
My goal here is to know better olive oil, to know better about the defects on olive oil, and to know better how to prevent them. This is my main goal as a producer and farmer.
Arit Saudri and Hadil Hamza work at the Sindiana of Galilee olive mill.
This is my third day, and I certainly can recognize a bad olive oil. Now I have to recognize the defect and why is it made, and to think about how could it be fixed in the future.
They are more deep in the subject. Like how she said, we are learning more about the defects in the olive oil.
Are you an expert in olive oil?
Not too much, but we're trying to in this course.
They're being taught by expert Carmen Sanchez Garcia, who came from Spain for the International Olive Oil Council.
Everybody can become a taster. This is something, it is clear. The only thing you need is someone who tells you, can you find this defect or think of this aroma? Maybe you can find it in the oil. But everybody, if you train, if you have the opportunity to be taught, it is possible.
Oil can be defective by being left in the sun, being too old, or being mixed with other oils.
Doesn't matter whether you like the oil or you don't like the oil. It's not about your own taste. It's about whether it has a defect or it doesn't have a defect. Okay? This is what it's all about. Okay? We're not here to assess oil and say, okay, this is going to win, this is not going to win, I'm going to recommend it or I'm not going to recommend it. It's not about it at all. It's whether it has a defect or not. Period. This is what we are here to find.
This course is the only one in Israel that gives formal certification for being an olive oil taster. Olive oil is the only food product where the results of tasting can be used as evidence in courts. As certified tasters, they'll be in demand.
In local money matters, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange while the shekel was down in foreign currency trading. Here are the late afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, we can expect a slight rise in temperatures. Here's a look at the highs and lows for the next 24 hours at home and abroad. And that's all for this newscast. Ari O'Sullivan will be here tomorrow, same time, same channel. Make sure to join him. I'm Laura Cornfield, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.